All right, welcome back everyone to Vuln Vibes. And for those of you tuned into the WP Safe blog today, get ready because we're about to do a deep dive into, well, the latest WordPress vulnerabilities.
Buckle up.
Yeah, exactly. Buckle up. But, uh, you know, we always like to do things a little differently here. So today's not going to be just about patching those individual holes, right? We're going for the bigger picture. We're
Yeah,
looking for trends. What's putting your WordPress sites at risk right now?
exactly. We're all busy people, and frankly, nobody wants to get bogged down in the nitty-gritty of every single vulnerability, right?
Right, totally.
So what we're going to do is we're going to analyze those patterns, the things that make WordPress such a juicy target for attackers, and more importantly, what that means for your overall security, your posture, keeping your site safe.
Okay, so let's jump right into it. And I gotta say, it feels like every other week there's a new vulnerability tied to, well, insufficient input sanitization and output escaping.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I'm looking at a couple of examples here. Right?
Sure.
You got the WP Test email plugin, versions 1.1.8 and earlier, and this one had a vulnerability that allowed attackers to, well, basically inject malicious scripts into the email logs. And then we've got the Torpedo plugin, versions 8.0.9 and earlier, similar issue, this time with attachment uploads. So these are both, I mean, they fall under the umbrella of stored XSS, right?
Absolutely, stored XSS. And it's almost become like a cliche in the security world at this point. You hear about it all the time. But the thing is, it's still a huge problem. It's like leaving the back door to your site wide open.
Yeah, it really is.
Attackers, they're constantly scanning, they're probing for these kinds of weaknesses. And when they find one, bam, they inject that malicious code, and guess what? It gets stored right on your server.
Oh, that's not good.
Not good at all. And every time that page loads, that code executes. And we're not just talking about like a little pop-up or something annoying. This is serious stuff. It could be anything from stealing user data, passwords, credit card info, to actually taking complete control of your site.
I mean, it feels like we keep hearing about this over and over. Why? Why do developers keep making this mistake?
Well, it's not always a simple answer. Sometimes it's the pressure to push out new features quickly, got to stay competitive. Other times it's just a simple lack of awareness. And let's be honest, WordPress development, it can get really complex.
You can?
You got themes, plugins, custom code floating around. It's easy to overlook something, especially when you're focused on other things. But, and this is a big but, the impact, it can be massive.
Yeah.
Got to remember, a stored XSS vulnerability, that makes your site a persistent threat. It's not just a one-time thing that goes away. It's sitting there waiting to be exploited.
So that's concerning. So beyond keeping things updated, all our plugins, all our themes, what can we actually do to protect ourselves against this specific type of vulnerability? Are there specific tools or even techniques we should be thinking about?
Oh, absolutely. Regular security audits are your best friend here. I mean, think of it like a checkup for your website. Now, there are also some fantastic plugins out there specifically designed for input validation. Think of them like a filter. They catch that malicious code before it even hits your server. And listen up, developers. PHP functions like scurl and sanitize text field, these are your first line of defense when you're handling user input. Use them, learn them, love them.
That's super helpful. So now, shifting gears a bit, our next trend looks at privilege escalation, which I think we often think of as, attackers gaining that admin access, that top-level access.
Right.
But it seems like it can be much more subtle than that, much more sneaky, I guess.
You're absolutely right. That's a key point here. Hackers, attackers, they don't always need the keys to the kingdom, right? They don't always need to be the admin to cause some serious damage.
Right.
Exploiting even those lower level privileges can be just as damaging, sometimes even more so because it flies under the radar.
Yeah, we've got a few examples of that right here. The uListing plugin, versions 2.1.7 and earlier. And this one had two separate vulnerabilities, allowing subscriber-level users, basic users, to escalate their privileges. So in one case, they could actually gain those full admin rights.
Wow.
Right? Crazy.
Sure.
And in the other, they could modify data and potentially even inject some harmful code, which we already talked about how dangerous that can be.
Right.
And then there's the WP SchoolPress plugin, versions 2.2.17 earlier. And in this one, teacher-level users could actually hijack accounts just by, manipulating some user details.
And that's the scary part, right? You have someone with what seems like limited access, someone who doesn't even raise any red flags, right? They're just blend in, they look normal, but they can pivot, they can gain a foothold in your system, and from there, it's game over. I worked on a case once where an attacker used a vulnerability in a forum plugin.
Oh, wow.
Started out as a regular user, just another member of the forum, But then they managed to get access to those moderator tools, and from there, boom, they were able to inject malicious JavaScript right into the site.
See, and that's what's scary. They're not coming in through the front door, they're coming in through the side window.
Exactly.
So, okay, knowing this, right, knowing how sneaky this can be, what are some concrete steps we can take to protect ourselves from these more subtle forms of privilege escalation?
Okay, so the principle of least privilege is your absolute best friend here. It's simple, but it's effective. Give your users the bare minimum access they need to do their jobs right. Don't overdo it.
Okay.
Second thing, you gotta have a strong password policy. And I'm talking strong, unique passwords. Two-factor authentication, the whole 9 yards. Make it as hard as possible for attackers to guess their way in. And finally, drumroll please, regular security audits.
There it is again.
It's like going to the dentist. You gotta do it. You need to be constantly checking for vulnerabilities, misconfigured permissions, anything that looks out of place. It's all about staying ahead of the bad guys.
Solid advice. Okay. Moving on to our final trend for today. And this one focuses on something that I think a lot of folks might overlook as a security risk, and that's themes.
Yeah, you'd be surprised how often themes end up being the weak link in the chain.
Right. We've got a great example right here, the Traveler theme, versions 3.1.8 and earlier. This one had a vulnerability allowing attackers to, get this, execute arbitrary files on the server.
Ooh, that's a bad one.
Yeah, we're talking potential data theft, malicious code injection, even complete server takeover. This is serious stuff.
And it comes down to this themes. They often have very deep integration with the core of WordPress, right? Which makes them a prime target for attackers. And because they tend to be less scrutinized than plugins, vulnerabilities, they can slip through the cracks more easily.
So how do we approach theme selection, but with security in mind, right? Like, what should we be looking for? What are the red flags?
Okay, so it all starts with choosing your themes from reputable developers, ones that have a proven track record of addressing security concerns quickly and effectively. Don't just go for the theme with the flashy design, the bells and whistles. Look deeper. Look for developers who are transparent about their security practices, who release updates regularly, and who are very responsive to vulnerability reports. Basically, you want someone who takes security seriously.
Got it.
And once you've chosen your theme, treat it like gold, keep it updated. Don't let those updates pile up.
Yeah, make it a habit, just like checking your email.
Yeah.
Okay, so just to recap everything we've talked about today, we covered 3 major WordPress security trends, and those are insufficient input sanitization, privilege escalation, and of course those local file inclusion vulnerabilities and themes, which can be pretty scary.
And here's the thing, and this is important to remember, these trends, these are just the tip of the iceberg. They represent a much broader challenge, and that's understanding how attackers think, where the weaknesses lie in the entire WordPress ecosystem. It's not just about patching that latest vulnerability, right?
Yeah.
It's about adopting a proactive, security-first mindset. It's a shift in thinking.
So true. Well, you've given us a lot to think about today. How do we go beyond just reacting to the latest threat and truly build a more secure WordPress environment?
That's a question we all need to be asking ourselves, right? And to all our listeners out there, keep the conversation going. Share your own experiences, your insights, your struggles even. Let's all learn from each other, and together, let's make the WordPress world a safer place.
I was going to say it better myself.
All right, that's it for today's deep dive. We'll catch you all next time on Vuln Vibes.
Stay safe out there.